1, 2, 3. Welcome back to another episode of the Safari Pedals Show. I'm your host, Abby. And in the audio jungle today in the studio, we have...
Hi.
Noam.
Yes.
Once again, he's back.
I'm the guy from the first episode.
Back and better than ever.
Yeah, I'm happy to be in my room.
Welcome back to your studio. Thank you for... Thank you for having us, I guess.
No, thank you for having me in my room.
It's always a pleasure. It's always great.
No, it is exciting to see how slowly this series of podcasts are getting into the groove of things, and I think Abby, you're doing a great job.
Oh, that really means a lot. Thank you.
Keep it going.
If you guys agree, let us know in the comment section after you like and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new Safari Pedals Show episode.
Yeah.
So let's get into it. I've brought you back to your own studio to ask you a very important question.
Yes.
How do adults make money in music? How do adults make money?
It's a really good question.
How do real adults make money in music?
Yeah, I can honestly answer based on my experience. Hopefully it will be insightful for some people.
Yeah, I would absolutely love to get your take because I consider you as a full-fledged adult.
It's
true,
unfortunately.
Unfortunately, as someone that is not, I'm an adult, but I don't feel fully fledged yet. Yeah. I really have to.
Yeah. I'm gonna start off with a really funny random story about Abby.
Go for it.
So when we started talking about the podcast and stuff, I basically needed her signature on a release form of sorts, just to kind of make it official. And her signature is like a random circle.
We're gonna attach a picture of the signature right here.
So yes,
this is my signature, guys.
No, it's good. It's good.
Can I give the backstory of the signature really quick?
Yeah.
A backstory on my silly signature, which is right here in the middle.
Yeah.
Now it's here existing.
Yeah.
When I turned 18, I went, like a young adult should, to open a bank account because that's what adults do and stuff like that. And no one prepared me for the fact that you have to have a signature. How was I supposed to know? And this lady, she was also a little bit grouchy, so I was scared, and she's like, sign this. She's turning this, and she's like, your signature needs to be here. And I was like... So then I just kind of doodled, and it's been like that ever since.
You did the doodle.
So
yeah,
that's the backstory.
My signature is a similar story, but I always dreamt of the moment that somebody will ask me for a signature. I don't know, when I was a kid, that was a thing. I was I don't know, 6 or 7. I was I need a signature. This is important, okay?
For when you sign autographs.
Yeah.
Obviously in the
exactly,
future.
Because I thought I'm going to be a basketball player when I was 7 years old.
But cutting to the episode.
Yeah, sure.
So, with all honestness out there, I have not made a cent for music.
Fuck.
I have not made a cent.
That's hard.
From the tracks that I have on Spotify, maybe with the amount of streams I have, I can get a third of a cent.
Did you make money from things involving music? So maybe producing or making a beat or
not yet.
Anything?
Not yet.
Zero. Okay. It's hard. I guess it's hard to kind of be in that position of I made $0.
I made $0.
Yeah. Before I kind of tell my story and my take on money and music and stuff, I think the most important thing is to follow your dreams. I'm 100% honest. I'm not being sarcastic or anything. And just I always believed that if you follow your passion, at the end of the day, you'll get paid, and you'll get paid well because you come from an honest place and you do what you really think is the thing that you're most passionate about.
Yeah.
And I think that in the music business, there's a lot of kind of ways to get there, and it's very difficult, and there's a lot of struggles and stuff. But at the end of the day, we're all really lucky, I feel, because we know what we want to do, what we're passionate about. And I just had this conversation earlier, I think yesterday, with someone at the studio lobby about how some people go through their whole life not knowing that they have like a passion for something. Doesn't really matter what it is, but
Yeah.
the fact that you know that you love music, and I know that I love music. I love mixing. I love doing all the audio nerdy shit. And I found it out really quickly. So I feel like we're fortunate in that regard.
It's a great thing.
And I also feel like we'll always, I mean, as long as you follow your passion and go with your dreams, you'll never wake up one day and say, I regret doing something. Because, I mean, that's how I look at life. Because you, at the end of the day, you know, did what you really aspired to do. And even if it doesn't work out, at least you tried.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, the flip, like the opposite side of that is people that don't even try to kind of go for it.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, very common.
So let's get to your money music.
Money music. Obviously, there's many ways of making a living in the music industry. The music industry is a very large industry, even though people don't realize it at first. I actually do like a full kind of lecture on it with a few colleges that I started doing over the years, because I felt like a lot of students that come out of audio school are like, well, that was fun, but how do I make a living? What are the first steps? What should I do? And
Yeah.
I have this kind of business strategy for people starting out in like production and in audio engineering that I think is quite controversial, but I really believe in it.
That means it's hot take time.
Yeah.
Hot take time.
Hopefully people won't hate me for saying this. I know some people don't agree with what I'm about to say, but I feel like people starting out should either do stuff for free in the beginning or get paid for it, the full kind of amount that is the norm in the industry. So let's say like if you're doing a mix and you want to work with someone, I feel like the right approach is to try and do it for money. But obviously when you're starting out, you don't have like a portfolio of stuff to do to kind of show for. And so most probably you'll find it really hard to get like $600 or $800 from someone for your first mix, which obviously makes sense. Like nobody's crazy. But then what most people do in their kind of chain of thought is instead of like taking $800 from a client, from like the first few clients, they'll go and be like, I'll do it for $100, which I think is a big mistake. Like, let's be honest, guys. You can't make a living out of mixing songs for $100 or like producing a song for $200 or whatever that like low tier of pricing is. And it only creates a bad opportunity for you because, let's be honest, you're starting out. So you might not be the best engineer that you could be in a few years' time. And once you offer someone work for hire, like a paid gig, they're going to treat it as if it is a paid gig because that's what it is. So if somebody's paying you $100 and you're not doing a really good job mixing a song or a record, they take it much more seriously than if you're doing it for free. And then you get a little bit of slack of like, okay, he's helping out. That's like a different story.
Interesting.
And then my approach is always saying like, okay, look, I'm aiming to take $800, but since I don't have a kind of a nice experience of things that I did in the past, I'm going to do this one for free because I believe in your music and I want to do something with you. But the next one is going to be for $800 if you like it. And then you kind of jump over the step of doing the low priced mixes, which another kind of bad thing that happens if you mix stuff for like $100 or whatever is you'll get stuck there. And I've been there. I've done everything wrong in the beginning, like everybody else. But like when I started, I did stuff for free. I did stuff for really cheap. I did stuff for like the right price. And what I noticed is when you do stuff for like a really low price, the person that paid you that price, you're labeled as that person from now on. and it's never going to change.
And also, like, they'll reference you, like, oh, I know a guy who will mix your song for like $100.
So exactly, and then you're doing like bad publicity for yourself. Even if you did do a good job, you're going to be the $100 mix guy. And then once you say, look, I want to take $500, the people like that were in conversation with you, you'll see, will slowly kind of, give you a negative response. Like, oh, I'm not sure about that. There's somebody else that I want to work with for that price, And at the end of the day, human beings, everybody's the same in the sense of like, like the difference between like a really expensive whatever watch and a really cheap watch a lot of times is the brand, and it's like what people tell you about the thing.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily the thing. So
it's kind of the package around it.
So I would kind of try and put an image on myself of like, look, I take $800 a mix, but I want to do this one for free. And that really changes the kind of perception of how people look at you.
And it kind of just sets you up for success.
Yeah.
Because you also like you value your, like, you already set like a value for your work.
Exactly.
Ahead of time, which is awesome.
And then the person in front of you sometimes feels like I'm getting this one for free because he wants to work with me, but he's not like labeled as a cheap guy. You know what I mean? Like the mixing engineer that isn't like, I don't know, like a $100 Fiverr. No offense.
No hate in the house.
Yeah. And hey, again, like with the disclaimer, I think there's many different ways of doing things. This is the way that I found made the most sense, but obviously other people would give you different advice.
Yeah.
I heard the exact opposite advice many times of like people saying like, don't do anything for free, even if it's like $10, take $10 because that's somebody that's paying you and da-da-da-da-da. But yeah, it doesn't make sense to me.
And so this kind of inspires the next question for me. What was your first like money making experience? Like the first time you were like,
I remember it so well.
Like it's possible to give us all out here a little more hope.
I think, okay, so I got two stories to tell about this. The first one is my first paid gig after being an intern in a studio was the engineer couldn't make it to a really cheesy commercial shoot, and it was for like the Yellow Pages.
I don't know.
You're too young. Oh my God, the Yellow Pages. You don't know what the Yellow Pages are?
Guys in the comments, what are the Yellow Pages? Comment below so I will know.
The Yellow Pages is what we used to use before Google was invented.
Before Google?
Yeah. Or
you mean like a book?
Yeah, it's a book that you look into it, and it's alphabetically organized, and you could find people or businesses in that book.
Maybe.
Anyway, we did a commercial for it, and it was like a really big deal for me at the time. And the engineer that had a lot of experience couldn't make it, and he called me up like a day before, and he's like, "Can you do it?" And I was like, 100% sure. Yes, I can do it. But I've never actually like recorded anyone in the studio yet. I was just sitting next to the engineer the whole time. But I was like, yes, I can do this. Easy. And then they came in and nothing worked and everything was like a disaster. The mic didn't work, the headphones didn't work, and there was like I was like bombing their ears with like click tracks. And after like an hour of frustration, they literally said like, look, we're not gonna we're going home, and we're not gonna pay for this session because it was trash and nothing was done. And and then I called the engineer, and he's like, great, that's good. That means that you realize like that you know nothing, and like you need more time to learn, and next time don't say you can do something if you can't do something.
Wow.
It was like, okay.
That sounds wow. It's like, yes, okay.
It was a funny experience. I was really, really young too, so I didn't take it too like hard on myself. I was like, I want to learn this more now.
Yeah.
So that's one funny story about that. That was the literal like first time I was attempting to make money out of engineering.
Attempt one.
Attempt one.
Now attempt two.
And then I don't know if this is not attempt two, but like the first album that I got for like a mixing gig was huge for me, like MoneyWise. I took something equivalent to like $500 a song, and it was 12 songs. So all of a sudden, I got $6,000 up front. It was with artist that was signed on a record label, which, by the way, I did like 2 songs for free before that. And then once he got signed, he was like, I want to use Noam. And then, I got paid.
Using the guaranteed advice.
Yes. And then I literally freaked out like with the money, because it was the first time I got paid something like that.
Wow. And like how long, like you would say from the start of your career till that moment, like what was kind of like the time span more or less?
Probably like 2 years in, 2 or 3 years in. I did some like other work before that, which was paid, but it was never like a large amount of money at the same time. And then when you get like chunks and pieces from here and there, it feels like you're still not making it.
Yeah.
Especially when like you work in the music industry, and artists or like producers and stuff tend to not pay you on time, which is a whole other story of like how to kind of have a normal life when doing this thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, you get like paid sometimes after 2 months or even half a year, which is my next tip. Even if you're just starting out, even if you're doing a mix or a production for free, I think you should always have a contract. Have a contract. It could be something you write on ChatGPT. That's fine. It doesn't have to be like with legal weight. It just needs to be something that's official. And the reason for it is, I think that when people are starting out, you're really eager to start, and you feel like you don't want to kind of press on the situation in any negative way. So you just jump in and start working. But especially when you're starting out, you're not as professional. So you might kind of move back and forth in the job of like whatever you're doing. So like let's say you were talking to a client about a mix, and then all of a sudden in the middle of the mix, you're finding yourself recording the vocals again, right? Or like auto-tuning, or like doing something that you didn't plan on doing. Or if it's a production of a song, maybe all of a sudden the song gets scraped, or maybe it's turning into a different song or whatever, like all these weird things that happen in music. And if you don't have a contract, you're actually kind of creating a really awkward situation in the long run, like moving forward with that artist, because you're going to have a talk with him and say like, look, we talked about mixing, but now we're kind of recording vocals, and that's not exactly what we talked about. And then that's like a bad conversation to have. But if you have a contract and you talk about like the borders of what you're planning to do, what he's planning to do before starting the gig, a lot of times you don't need to have the conversation later on, because everybody knows that like we didn't talk about whatever vocal comping.
So it's all situated in the beginning.
Yeah, and then everything's nice and organized. And also, I think another part of the contract is talking to the client in a very direct way and saying like, these are the things that I understood that you want me to do. So let's just make sure that these are the things that you want me to do.
Yeah.
And not like kind of hope that we both understand each other.
Yeah.
And in reality get to like a point where we really don't, and we're already in the middle of it, and you don't want to ruin his vibes, and you're in the studio. That's not like a good place to
start off.
To start talking about like, well, we didn't talk about doing this,
So like about that. Yeah. Also what you said about the contract, I like, because I'm not a very confrontational individual.
Yeah.
And I think like it just like I haven't gotten to the point where I have an artist that I need to sign a contract with, but that definitely is advice that I will be taking. Save yourself the trouble later on.
Yeah. Finding somebody just did the funniest noise outside.
I don't know if the mics probably didn't pick it up.
But it was like a
it was like, but like combined with the sneeze, it was like
what I was about to say is that you should try and kind of aim to find people that you enjoy working with, and also that you can go a long journey with. And I think this is something that a lot of people misunderstand. And I think this applies to kind of producers and engineers alike. And what I'm trying to kind of say is, a lot of times, just look at the long run and try and find somebody that could work with you on many different projects. And I think doing that isn't always easy at the beginning. Like, you don't know who this person is going to be. But once you have a sense of like, oh, like this is the second album that we're mixing together or producing together, and he's really liking the stuff that I do and I really like his taste, and we're working in a very good kind of consistent way, don't lose that connection. And I feel like it's something really important to say, because a lot of times you get the sense of like, when you're in the mix of things, you're like, you're counting. A lot of times you're kind of like thinking about you compared to other people. You're like thinking about like, did I waste too much time doing this mix? Is his, like, whatever the person in front of you is his requests like being too specific? Is he like doing something annoying? You know, all these like thoughts that you have in your head. And sometimes I think, for me at least, the biggest thing was to kind of say, like, I'm trying not to look at it as a short little project of like, he's doing, like, he's paying me $500 and this is what I need to do for him in return.
And that's it. Like,
and that's it, because that's how he's going to treat it too. But if you go the extra mile and you go like and try and just be with him and help whoever you are with in the situation of just making the record sound better, it might lead to a really meaningful connection and a fun one too.
I love this point especially, and I think that everyone watching and whoever kind of is like new and on Instagram, on kind of like social media, like I get such a notion online by seeing like different producers, at least on Instagram, they're like, they have all these credits with these different artists, and it seems like they're like working with 1 million people at the same time. And so like, it's actually, now that you said it, like I realized that it wasn't even obvious to me that I should even consider kind of sticking with a certain artist or a certain engineer for the long run. And that makes so much sense also, because you can...
And by the way, those people, a lot of times that's their story too. Like if you take, for example, just an example that I know from, like, not personally, but like I've seen many times, heard this story many times, is Rick Rubin working with Andrew Sheps. So Andrew Sheps is an engineer and a great mixing engineer and producer by his own right, but he just clicked with Rick Rubin and did with him like Red Hot Chili Peppers, Metallica, later on like 1 million different amazing projects. The connection is the producer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not like he didn't like get gigs like from all these different bands. He got gigs from this one producer. The more you move on with your career, you kind of find more and more of those people, and you get like a sense of like, okay, we have a community here of kind of like-minded engineers, producers, musicians that just want to work together and do great projects together. And then it doesn't feel like a job anymore at the end of the day. It just feels like fun.
Yeah. And then like, but it's also really cool because at the same time, you're literally creating more opportunities, like, and as it ties into the episode, more money also, like on kind of like a money level.
Absolutely. And then another thing with money that I think is worth mentioning is, again, going back to the point of like not looking at it as a work for hire, like he's paying me $500, I'm doing the mix, but treating it as a long journey of building relationships. Because at the end of the day, if we look at like a really zoom outy kind of perspective, all of the producers and engineers that we're talking about as examples and stuff are freelancers. And when you're a freelancer, you're essentially building your own business, building your own brand, building your own company. If you want to be successful at building, you need to understand that it's a structure that needs to be built. It's not like one project per thing. You know what I mean? It's like it needs to be building blocks that you need to build one on top of the other. So you did one project with one guy and then try and find another project that kind of hopefully is extension of the first one. Try and look at the opportunities in a business perspective of like, how can I build whatever I'm trying to build?
Like to kind of essentially create your brand.
Yeah. A brand is created by, you know, whatever the outcome of that brand is. So like I always wanted to be a pop mixer. That was like my dream, to mix Taylor Swift. I'm honest. Like
Taylor, if you're watching.
Yes. I'm a Swiftie. But that didn't work out. Like the first gigs that I got were a lot of indie rock bands. And I was just trying to make a living. And I was like, yeah, cool. Indie rock, whatever. And then that kind of stick with me. And I love indie rock. It's just not what I was aiming for. And later on in my career, that was what I was known for. So people thought like, oh, you love indie rock and you're
the indie rock guy.
Indie rock guy.
Like it's.
And I'm like, I want to be a pop guy. But what I'm trying to say is like, if you want to aim somewhere, you should aim that like angle from the get-go. Like if I would do everything again, I would not take the indie rock gigs, even though they were like paying me money. And I would just strictly stay with the theme of the stuff that I wanted.
The theme song.
Yeah. Because later on, it's too hard. Like you can't.
Like,
it's a brand already. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm the indie rock guy.
To wrap up this moneyful conversation, to all of the studio animals behind the camera, do you have one final piece of advice, a little tidbit for them, for everyone at home?
I do have one last thing, which is relating to what you said, like studio animals and stuff. And I think people should feel more like free to really express yourself with whatever you're doing. So I feel like a lot of times when I work with or like talk to people that are starting out, they're too scared to do big things, big changes, big kind of changes in the mix or in the production, because they feel like they're insecure and it's like they're beginning and stuff. But I feel like the opposite should be applied. Like just go as big as you can, as crazy as you can, because that way you also know, like, if it doesn't work, you know.
Yeah.
And if you're like EQing a kick and you're like changing half a dB, you might not know if it's a good move or a bad move. But if you go in there and you like pull up like 15 dB of something and it sounds amazing, that's great. But if it sounds terrible, you immediately know
wrong move.
Right? Yeah. And that applies to everything. Like I love producers that are not afraid to just go crazy. Like start a song with a guitar and then throw the guitar away. Let's do let's try different.
Of course,
stuff.
using Safari pedals on said guitar.
We wildin'.
Yeah. But I really like that analogy. So guys, keep that analogy and apply it. And I would say my last piece of money advice, considering that I've made I've still made $0, maybe like half a cent. Perfect the signature and work on it. So it won't look like this. Because you'll come off more adult-like and responsible, and it probably will profesh, and it may up your chances of financial, money, music opportunities. Thank you for being on the show in your studio again.
Thank you, Abby.
Thank you for coming back. And if you guys like this episode, please like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss Safari Pedals Show episode. And that's a wrap. So
you're getting really good at this. Scary.
It's scary.
Yeah.
You know,
I can't even say the names.
A fun little story to edit in at home. What I'll do, my mom will be in the kitchen. I'll come up behind her and I'll be like, "Welcome back to another episode of the Safari Pedals Show. I'm your host."
That's hilarious.
So we work it out here. Stay cool in the audio jungle.
Weird moves.
That's a wrap.